So there are so many intriguing battles that we've been keeping up with, but today we need to update a battle that the eyes of the college football world have been watching very closely. A battle for not only a 5-star signal caller, but the number one player in the class who just so happens to field the last name Manning. And of course, we're talking about Arch Manning. We need to talk about his upcoming visit to the Alabama Crimson Tide, but also talk about what the Georgia Bulldogs and Texas Longhorns have to offer. Before we do, as always, y'all know the drill. I need to hear from you. Hop down to the comments, Y for yes, N for no. And considering two of the three institutions that are normally mentioned with Arch Manning are in the SEC, do you believe Arch Manning plays his college football in the SEC? And let me know what you're thinking. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe. Hit that bell notification as I do constant college football content. You don't want to miss any of it. And if you enjoyed this content, like and comment down below as those interactions are massive. But having said all that, let's jump right into this because this is a very interesting topic, one that the eyes of the sporting world have been watching closely and for good reason. And we're going to start with the Alabama Crimson Tide because this is where it gets interesting. Alabama already has a quarterback in this recruiting class, in 4-star signal caller Eli Holstein, also out of the state of Louisiana. And Alabama Crimson Tide staff loves where they're at with Holstein. Eli Holstein is an individual who's a high-ranking 4-star who it would not surprise me in the least to see him end up as a 5-star. If he continues to camp well and if he has a good senior season, I don't think many people would be surprised to see that evolution and to see that raise in his status from 4-star to 5-star. But nonetheless, Alabama is still in this battle for Arch Manning. Arch Manning still is interested in visiting the Crimson Tide. But at the end of the day, we know what Alabama does. And because we know what Alabama does in terms of development, in terms of putting players in positions to succeed, it's never surprising when these high-ranking guys, such as an Arch Manning, are seriously looking at Alabama, even though they may have stiff competition once they get there. Because whenever we're talking about this battle for Arch Manning, the question needs to be asked, and it's a question I don't have the answer for, but inevitably the question must be asked. What is Arch Manning looking for? Because if he's looking for the most surefire thing, well then Alabama's very tough to argue with. We know what Alabama has been offensively here recently in terms of fielding top-tier offenses, and that doesn't look to slow down. We also know that Alabama has a great rate of surrounding their quarterbacks with very talented playmakers, making the quarterback's job and life a little bit easier. And inevitably, like I said, we know the development rate Alabama fields. The question is, though, will Alabama be able to pull two blue-chip prospects? I think it's unlikely, but at the end of the day, it is Alabama. They recruit at the highest level, and so if anybody could do it, it would be Nick Saban. But we also need to talk about where Arch Manning already took a visit to, because the Georgia Bulldogs recruit just as well as any institution in the nation and are constantly fielding top 3 recruiting classes, and they're coming off of a national championship. And as I said for Alabama, the question must be asked, what is Arch Manning looking for? And if Arch Manning is looking to change a narrative, well then Georgia and Texas fit that mold. And let me explain, because I know some Georgia fans are probably raising their eyebrows right now. The reason I say Arch Manning can go to Georgia and change a narrative is simple, because we know what Georgia's defense is. We know Georgia's going to recruit and field elite talent, but we haven't seen that offense be able to match the ferocity of that defense. Arch Manning can come in there and attempt to change that narrative, and in doing so, Georgia's in an intriguing position because they get the best of both worlds. They can offer the pitch of a surefire thing in terms of we know Georgia's going to be successful. We know they're going to surround Arch Manning with very talented pieces. We know that defense will continue being a top defense in college football, so they do have something sure. But at the same time, Arch Manning can also work towards changing a narrative. And because of that, Georgia is a real team in this battle right now. They offer both the ability to change a narrative and the ability to have a surefire thing. And if you're Arch Manning and that's what you're looking for, well then the Georgia Bulldogs might just be the stop. And it never hurts for them to be able to pitch. We just came off of a national championship and you got to watch it happen. That is something that is incredibly difficult to say no to, as we know that Georgia is still loaded with talent. But finally, we need to talk about the visit that is yet to come that will be arriving very shortly, and that's the Texas Longhorns. Depending on where you look, the team that many believe may be the favorite to land Arch Manning. And as I said for Georgia, as I said for Alabama, the question once again must be asked, what is Arch Manning looking for? And if changing the narrative, as I said for Georgia, is what he wants to do, well, he has the most narrative to change at the University of Texas. Steve Sarkisian and company come in, look to turn it around, but they need talent to do so. And they've been successful at acquiring offensive talent, but now it's just about rounding it out. But inevitably, they can use that to pitch to Arch Manning, saying, hey, people want to play with you. People believe in you, and they're going to be interested in following your journey. So why not take that journey here to Austin? This is where it gets interesting. Because out of all three individuals, whether we're talking Nick Saban, Kirby Smart, or Steve Sarkisian, there's only one of those three that are offensive minds, and that's Steve Sarkisian. He came from being an offensive coordinator. He's fielded great offenses before and fantastic quarterback play. And so he's the offensive mind of the three, and maybe that gives Texas a leg up. We just saw Steve Sarkisian put up great offensive numbers with an incredibly lackluster offensive line and not the defense he would like to have. So it's going to be interesting to try and imagine what they'll be capable of once they start getting things figured out. But you know that's going to be the pitch to Arch Manning. Come help us figure it out as we already are piecing things together, but be the final puzzle piece that allows us to complete the picture and allow us to bring Texas back to where they want to be, something the Longhorns have been looking to attain for quite some time. So this is why I say this battle is so incredibly interesting. Every institution genuinely has a real pitch, whether Arch Manning wants to change a narrative, whether he wants a surefire thing, or whether he wants a little bit of both. Each one of these teams has something to offer, and because of that, I'm going to be very interested to see how everything happens. Now, Arch Manning will be visiting Alabama this weekend. We will be breaking down the visitor list for the Crimson Tide later in the week, but I wanted to talk about Arch Manning himself. But hop down in the comments, let me know what you're thinking. That's it. See ya.